Hello and welcome to Baritus Catholic podcast, a show where two Mexican dads talk about faith, life, and culture. We are your
Gustavo.
hosts, and Walter. And today we are going to talk to Brian Edwards about why literature matters. Brian Edwards, welcome to the
Hey, I'm
podcast. How
good.
are you?
Thanks for having me, guys.
That's awesome. Thank you for accepting our invitation. Um, we know you from the Instagram world,
hmm
which we'll touch on in a little bit more. But for those that don't know you, who is Brian Edwards?
So I am actually a convert in Birmingham, Alabama. Grew up Protestant. We had a family ministry and everything, and then the whole family converted at some point. My mom reverted. A little bit of Italian heritage helped there, and
hmm
I don't know, like a few
Nice.
years after I converted, I started up the meme page, mostly with the vision in mind to write some books and to have a audience for that. So here we are.
That's awesome.
Nice. So I stumbled upon the meme page that Brian is talking about. It's called Cathoholicism, not
Yes,
Catholicism.
it's very good.
Catholicism.
Most people
Uh,
they really mess it up. The name.
there you go. But it's really great. Like it's apologetics, it's history, punches at famous traditionalist YouTubers should shall remain unnamed. It has a little bit
Yeah,
of everything. I have to admit, like I'm like old enough that some of those memes I'm like I have no
totally.
what's going on
If it
here.
wasn't for my audience, I would not know what they meant either for the most part,
hmm
because people send me stuff
Yeah.
and then I have to be
There you go.
submerged in it.
How long have you been doing that now?
uh, since 2018, December 2018. So
Oh, nice.
yeah, a few years. Hasn't
That's
been
cool.
that long. Yeah, I guess it has.
I know we're all like, I still can't believe 2020 happened. I kind of block it out of my mind. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? A lot of people don't count that year.
Didn't
Yeah.
happen.
Well, it happened, but they don't
entire
count it. Exactly. They don't count it. It was just like whatever that year was. And then everything after or everything before that did indeed happen. So I get where
yeah,
you're coming
the
from.
whole thing's been like a fever dream.
Listen, I
Yeah,
still
dude.
I still feel like the 70s were 30 years ago, but
That's yeah.
like kind of like brain,
I know.
kind of boomer brain a little bit. But anyways, also on Instagram, now that you mentioned that you have like an audience and the idea was to write books and all that, Gustavo and I have been talking about the need for like good literature, and good literature that is not overtly Catholic and it's not Lord of the
Right.
hmm
Rings, um, and that's kind of how we tricked you into taking this interview. Uh, so I guess we can jump into talking about the two books that you have. Kind of like what was the thought process behind writing the books? Like maybe you want to start with like your debut novel, and then we can take it from there and maybe ask questions
Yeah,
in between.
sure. So with Stork is actually my second attempt at a book, and the first attempt, I was writing when we lived in our studio apartment, and I just didn't have a very good vision for it, and it was a great learning experience because it was my first time writing, writing as much as I did. I did like 50,000 words and then I threw it away, but it lacked direction, and the morality was a little confused in it, uh, and because it was more satirical in nature. But
hmm
Stork is the first in a series. I'm not really sure how many there's going to be. It might be a trilogy. Might not be. It might just be a couple of books. But I found out my wife was pregnant, and it kind of just it kind of like really accelerated the writing process for me, because it is a pro-life dystopian novel set in the near future. And I don't know, when I was writing it, there are some very overt Catholic themes in it, but while I was writing it, I had one of my more, like, I guess, agnostic friends read it, proofread it, like each morning whenever I finished a chapter or whatever, and she really enjoyed
Uh-huh.
it. So I wanted to create something that was not, uh, and this isn't really a dig, but like not, pure flicks or whatever. I wanted something that was
Mhm.
brutal and honest, and a little bit less G rated, like a lot of other
Mhm.
Catholic books and TV shows and movies are.
It just because I think that's important as well, because not just because it is um, Catholic themed, it has to be like perfectly manicured and like happy endings and all these things that are kind of like you said, like pure
Mm-hmm.
flicks, right? That uh, it's not that. It's like the themes seem kind of dark, like persecution of Christians, pro-life issues, the replacement of God by AI. That was an interesting one. It's like I have yet to read
Mm-hmm.
it,
Mhm.
but I'm really looking forward to reading that one.
Well, I mean, just look
Um,
at the Bible, right? I mean, the
Right.
Bible's not for the faint of heart.
They
Yeah,
right.
even
definitely could produce a TV show like covered verse by verse without some censoring
oh,
or something.
totally, you know.
It,
And
yeah.
even going through the Bible in a year, you know, Father Mike kind of like gives you a disclaimer on some of those episodes. It's like,
Yeah.
if you're driving the kids to school, you might want to wait till they're in school before you listen to this one, you know, because there is a lot of those themes, you know, where
Hmm.
they turn away from God. Let's keep it G rated, you know, for our audience's purpose.
Right.
But no, but I really like the approach, you know, and also it really opens it up, I think, for a more broader audience. You know, I don't necessarily know exactly where you were going with it in terms of like who you wanted to attract as an audience. Did you have that in mind when you were writing it, or was it just like this is going to be the story and whoever reads it, like, great?
A little bit of both, because it was my first book, and I just, I didn't really know. I kind of had an expectation of like my parents reading it, and maybe a
Mm-hmm.
couple of friends, but a lot of people, a good number of people have read it, and I, I I targeted sort of a younger audience with it, because I think the Zoomers, as they're called today, they're just
mhm.
they don't have much of a guide in their culture. They don't have good role models. They don't have good
Mm-hmm.
stories or anything. Uh, and it's just their media is it's horrible. It's honestly it's a crime what they've been
It is.
subjected to, and I wanted to present a good story of good quality to people that have an imagination that can read
Mm-hmm.
books, and maybe learn something from it, a new perspective maybe.
Totally. Well, God bless you for that. You know, couldn't agree with you more. I think it's a great disservice. First of all, that I think schools could do a better job at introducing better literature, you know, from the
Hmm.
get go. Um, but also in the home. You know, I think it starts in the home. We're both Walter and I, our families homeschool, and we have a uh, Catholic classical curriculum that we follow, and it's chuck loaded with beautiful literature from the beginning. My wife has actually been instrumental in that journey, you know, our homeschooling journey. And she was telling me yesterday she was reviewing the next year's curriculum, and she's like, "Yeah, your 13-year-old is going to be reading C.S. Lewis's Mere Christianity next year." So there you go. And she's 13 and she's being introduced to really heavy topics like that. So was it like that in your case, in terms of like what type of literature that were you brought up with, and how do you think that impacted your, not only your faith but also your writing?
I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I was not the best student. I've kind of, when I was in school, I kind of I didn't do the summer readings, and they picked the most boring books imaginable. I mean, I need to give it another shot now that I'm more of an adult. But there was there was this one book that was just, it was so bland, and it was set in like a dreary, wintry place. I don't even remember the name of it, but I don't know. Just bad books, and some of the books, they were good, but they were like shortened versions of it, like summarized versions of the books or whatever.
The
Like
abridged.
we did some, yeah,
Abridged.
that's the word. We did some Shakespeare plays like that, like Hamlet and what was it, Macbeth and whatnot. They were good, I think, but they were just, we didn't get the full thing, and the other books we read just weren't really anything of substance.
Yeah.
So I kind of picked
Yeah.
my own books to read, and I read stuff like C.S. Lewis and Jules Verne and H.G. Wells and the Sherlock Holmes books, and I don't know, I just, that was more of my thing.
Nice.
Yeah. Sweet.
And I think you mentioned a few of those authors as influences to your writing. I think, if I remember
Yeah,
correctly,
I might have.
from your Goodreads
I
profile.
think I did put something like that in Goodreads. Yeah, definitely sci-fi. That was what I was more focused on in high school. But with my other books, I've kind of, I've read new authors, not new authors, but I've been exposed to more since I read Stork, or since I wrote Stork, and I guess my writing has been influenced by them a little more, such as like Ernest Hemingway, and he's got horrible, crude stuff, but like the way he writes is very neat to me. So that kind of influenced Shriving Place, which is my second book.
Gotcha. I mean, he was also loaded most of the time, so that kind of makes sense. So we talked a little bit about the before we move on to the Shriving Place, like that curriculum of like schools choosing books. Did you know that now there is a movement to like take classics like To Kill a Mockingbird in some other of these, like, they have been in the curriculum of high school for
Right.
years. I think they're trying to like remove them. There's like some kind of like woke movement from teachers trying to like get rid of all of these books that have been included in the great books reading list. Which, whether we want to, accept it or not, it is like blatant attack on like Western civilization and Western culture. Because, I mean, if you look at the list of books, some of the authors that are mentioned there are going to be like Saint Augustine, Saint Thomas Aquinas,
Yeah.
the Bible. So now all I see, like, if you try to browse like books of Instagram or Bookstagram or whatever, you're gonna find like something that is like Black, Indigenous, and people of color authors, stories told by women, which is nothing wrong about showcasing those authors, but it sounds like you are showcasing those authors specifically because of those particular demographics, not necessarily because they are good works.
Right.
Which is like the problem that I have with promoting literature just through that aspect. Like, I don't care who wrote it or who that person is from, what's like their background. I just give me
Good
good
work.
stories that can grab my attention.
Right.
Yeah. Um,
I've got several
so
guilty pleasures, you know, when it comes to writing and stuff.
do
Yeah.
tell.
I I mean, the works aren't necessarily like pure and just and holy or whatever, but like Ernest Hemingway for one, and I kind of really liked Slaughterhouse-Five when I read it. That was Kurt Vonnegut Jr. and he's something sort of
Okay.
a commie, but I mean that book was it was an anti-war book, and it was a really good book in my opinion, but I don't recommend it for everybody because there's some scandalous stuff in it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, when I tried to start reading Catcher in the Rye, there was so much GD going on that I felt guilty reading that book, and I was like, I'm just gonna put it down for a little bit.
Never read it. I've never read that book. Completely skipped over it.
It's all right. It's funny. Like growing up in Mexico, we were mostly exposed to like Latin American literature in high school, and like some really like I don't know if you're gonna be able to wrap your brain around this, but like translations of Shakespeare to Spanish.
Not the best.
It's kind of like watching Friends dub.
Yeah.
It's not the same.
Yeah, I can imagine. I'm sure a lot of things were lost in translation with that.
Yeah. So I don't know if it counts if I read Shakespeare. Anyhow, it's good. It's good exposure to literature. Maybe even like reading in the original language could be. I mean, I'm pretty sure there are good translations of a lot of works, but just saying that being able to read in two languages like opens up a worlds of possibilities for getting to know more works. All right, so before we go to the Shriving place, one thing that I wanted to ask you is the cover of Stork. Was it designed by Chris Lewis?
Yes, it was Chris Lewis. On Instagram, his media and everything is Baritus Catholic, and he does a great job. He's
amazing.
I've got the book here. I don't know how it shows up on the camera, but
it looks great.
Yeah. So I was an artist in high school and growing up and stuff, and I've done murals and whatnot, and so I drew like a rough idea of what it was, and I was like, this is not going to cut it. And I always saw his work, and his work is probably my favorite like modern, art there is, to be honest. And I'm not exaggerating.
I would concur with that. That's amazing.
He does it. He does the work in a way that is very similar to like wood engravings and stuff, like Albrecht Dürer and like more of the old school Renaissance kind of religious artwork that I was always inspired by. And that's why I really liked his stuff. And I asked him to do it, and hopefully I can get him to do the sequel cover whenever it's finished, because he's very busy.
Yeah, I
know. It's a good thing that you got him when he was not. I don't know when this is. This said 2020 is when Stork came out.
So I was writing it in 2019, and then it was ready in 2020, and that's when I released it in like April. And I released it like right after COVID started happening, and I don't know, it was good timing. He had been working on the cover for a few months before I released it, of course. But the book is it probably paired very nicely with COVID, because there's a lot of things that were happening that you will find in the book, and it's very it's got that same environment, quarantine and kind of secret masses and stuff like that.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's like you talk about dystopian future, and then you're like, wait a minute, I have heard that before. It doesn't look like that.
And then it got
maybe
cloudy, and then it got cloudy outside.
I thought maybe I should stop writing books, or maybe write like happier books.
Yeah. Try something with like, guys ever read like Frog and Toad? You know, nice
Yeah.
stories like Frog and Toad. You know,
Yeah,
lighten up the
yeah.
mood a little bit.
Yeah, I might try it.
Yeah, dude.
It's like next thing you know is like, what are you working on, Brian? It's like children's
Mhm.
books,
Yeah, yeah.
which are also necessary. But what is not a children's book is the Shriving Place, your second novel. That this one came out in December of
I will
2020.
I will say real
Um,
quick though that Stork isn't necessarily a children's place. I would say like 15 and up maybe for
Mhm.
Stork. There's some graphic scenes in it, kind of like disturbing. There's some violence in it, and there's like a couple like bad words, but not like bad words. Like
Mhm.
maybe the D word or something like that. I don't know who's listening, so it's not necessary.
No,
It's
that's
not a
good.
children's
Yeah,
book,
it's-
but
Yeah.
it's definitely a young adult book.
That's good.
There we go. That's a good extension to
Okay.
make. The Shriving Place, which I didn't know what the Shriving Place was. I had to Google it because I'm like, what does that mean? Is it like a confessional?
Yeah. So I don't even know like why I thought to make that the title. I guess I was researching about confessionals or something. I thought that was a cool word, shrive or shriving place. So I picked that as the book because in the book there's kind of a confession. The book itself is kind of a confession of like a guy that hunts child abusers, and he's a serial killer. And he's on this mission to just take justice in his own hands. And so that I guess that's why I named it the Shriving Place. I got it right here as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I did the cover of this myself.
Nice.
So because I didn't want to bother Chris with it because it was just like a novella, just like a small little project. I wanted to see how much of a book I could do by myself. I didn't even have it edited by anybody. I just did it all myself.
Nice.
With that one.
And is that a Roman collar that the skull has?
Yes. So
in the cover.
Yeah.
Not to give too much away from the
Yeah.
story.
No. I mean, they'll find out pretty quick. So the serial killer specifically targets priests that have committed these sins. Yeah. So it was a very intense subject, and it's very intense, reading material. But I wanted to explore that idea as a Catholic of the reality that is, like bad priest and justice and the lack of justice, and where things get complicated. People think about that kind of stuff.
Yeah, just like reading the description, I was like, what is family meant to do knowing that predators continue to breed? Will justice be done? And I was like, will it? So
Yeah.
I have yet to get my two autographed copies that I got from you that I'm not going to sell on eBay, I promise.
Yet.
Yeah. Wait.
Yeah.
Wait,
if it
maybe
blows
like
up.
10 years or something.
Wait after the movie comes out.
We'll see.
Yeah.
Yeah, when this is like, we interviewed him before he
Yeah,
sold
exactly.
the rights to the movie. But that is like, it is a hot button topic, but I think that is like something that you and Cruz and I forgot the third gentleman that
Ricardo.
runs the Instagram account
Ricardo.
with you,
Yeah.
Ricardo. You guys don't shy away. You don't pull any punches from all the
We used to be
controversy.
a lot worse, I'll tell
At
you.
least in
We used to be a lot worse. And we got 2 different strikes from Instagram, and I mean, right now, any day they could take the whole thing away from us, and so
Mhm.
we've kind of alluded to things whenever necessary, but we definitely used to be a lot worse. A couple of years ago, for sure.
So do you think that as a convert to the faith, like first of all, how long have you been Catholic?
I always forget the answer to this. I think it was I started dating my now wife in 2014, and I think we were already like attending RCIA, and then 2015 spring is when we entered the church for Easter.
Okay.
So however many years ago that was, 7, I guess.
7.
Yeah,
7 this Easter now.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
That's awesome. Praise be to God. What do you think that because I've seen that most converts, Gustavo and I are cradle Catholics. Most converts are like pretty outspoken about all the things. Like they become one of the best defenders of the faith that I have seen. That sometimes I'm like kind of jealous, like in a good
Mhm.
way, of how on
Hmm.
fire converts are for the faith. Do you think that has something to do in terms of like what has inspired you? I mean, you kind of alluded to that that's what you wanted to do, but um, was this like the main inspiration that came after your conversion to say, I'm Catholic now, I'm going to dive
Well,
in
not
and
really,
have this
not
as an
immediately.
inspiration?
When I first converted, I don't think I had like a full conversion. I think what really drew me into the church initially was just a simple number of facts about history and like my ancestors and whatnot, and my great grandparents and stuff. And I was like, I mean, they could have been wrong, and like, just looking at history and how long the Roman Catholic, uh, you know, history is, and like all the saints and everything. And it wasn't until a few years later that I really had like a spark inside, and it was at All Saints, or no, All Souls Day Mass or whatever.
Mhm.
And
Mm-hmm.
it really uh, woke me up in a spiritual way, and that's when I started getting involved with the page, and the page really helps me, and it's always helped me uh, because I have to create new content, and I have to learn new things continuously, and and people, they message me and whatnot, and so I have to continuously answer them, and I have to look into more things, and it just keeps me focused on that kind of the walk with Christ and everything, as superficial as social media is. But without it, I mean, sometimes, like if I take a break or whatever, I could get sidetracked from my spirituality just because I don't have that support group. Uh, but I don't know. My upbringing was very religious, even as a Protestant. My dad was a pastor for 10 years, and he's always
Okay.
had that energy in the house that I was raised in, as defending the faith. But of course, we were defending the borderline heretical faith of Protestantism, and well, I mean, fully heretical technically, but yeah. So we weren't heretics in every way, but we were heretics enough. But it was just,
And the parts that
yeah,
counted.
in some pretty major in some pretty major ways. But I don't know, just being raised in a religious environment like that
Mhm.
definitely had a big part of
Yeah. It,
I mean, you're in the
it.
Bible
Mm.
Belt, so
Oh yeah.
that's the part that I'm like, oh wow, like I don't know how hard it is to be a
Well,
Catholic
after
in
after I
Alabama.
was woken up about it, before I kind of people would say things, like families, friends, and like coworkers, they would talk crap to me or whatever if they found out I was Catholic, and I was just kind of like, like whatever. But after that sermon, that priest, the homily that he gave, uh, I wanted to be able to defend the faith, and I really buckled down. And as I was making memes, I was learning things and defenses of the church and whatnot. And people stopped bothering me because they knew if they were going to say something, they weren't going to be able to recover from it. They wouldn't have an argument. So
Yeah.
that's what I did. I definitely advise everybody to try to do that.
Yeah.
Learn the faith, and you'll feel more secure in it for sure.
Yeah. That's similar to what we started with the podcast. I mean, obviously, we've said it more than once on the podcast. Neither Walter or I are theologians by any stretch of the imagination. We're just two lay Catholic men trying to inspire other men to be better husbands, fathers, men of Christ, followers of Christ. And when we were about to launch the podcast and we're like in talks, I remember my wife telling me, "Is like, you gotta like bring your A game now," and that's what the podcast has done, at least for me. It's really forced us to be more intentional about learning, because if we're going to have any type of platform, it's has to be of first of service to God. We cannot be he cannot be undone in his generosity, and I think we owe him the same uh, effort. So and secondly, to really defend it and know it in a way that it's infectious, and we want to attract people by the way we live our faith, not just by being like you're wrong, or that type of mentality. But yeah, when we first launched it, I mean, we're just like flying by the seat of our pants, essentially, right, Walter? We're like, yeah, we're gonna talk about this, and we'd be
Basically.
reading that day, and I was like, all right, I think I have enough to get me through. Kind of like how I got through high school. I was like
Right.
cramming the day of the test, and then like,
Okay, you're making it sound like it is very improvised. Some of the episodes are very well planned.
yeah,
Yeah.
because you
Okay.
Yeah.
planned them, but I had to do a lot of studying.
Yeah,
Oh, okay. Well,
it's
there's
pretty
that.
similar. I mean, we don't have to come up with nearly as much content, just making memes or whatever. But Ricardo and I will just be chatting about some subject or something, and we'll see the irony in something or the humor,
Mm-hmm.
and we'll have to create it. Or we're reading about something in particular, like theosis or like more Eastern theology kind of things, and we'll want to dive into it.
Yeah,
Yeah, that part of like Eastern, like Byzantine Catholic um spirituality, that is something that I also have a personal interest in. That I think that the three of you collectively, you're creating content on that, and I'm like, can't relate to that. Uh, Mainly because it's really beautiful. Like I haven't been to a divine liturgy, but I think Gustavo and I are very much like beauty in general is going to lead you to
yeah,
God, because He is perfection, He is beauty,
Right.
He is perfect being. And whether we want to admit it or not, Latin Roman Catholicism has lost a little bit of uh, its shininess. I don't know what other way to explain it, but the smells
It's
and
the
bells
I
is
think
that
in
we
a
lost.
way it's kind of like the price for global coverage. Is kind of like the it's kind of like the Wi-Fi. Like it reaches throughout the house, but like you know to reach throughout the house, it might get a little fuzzy from the source or whatever,
gets
and
distorted
it's
in
just
some places.
yeah
Yeah,
yeah and I don't, you know, it's unfortunate, but I think in a few hundred years, we might see Catholicism in a more folksy way than, you know, within the next few decades. Probably we might see Catholicism as it used to be, a little more, and not so, for lack of better terms, like not so generic, you know, because there's a lot of parishes out
Yeah.
there that are very very safe and very like, you know, very cookie cutter in a way. And I don't know, divine
Yeah.
liturgy hasn't lost its ethnic background or anything like that, and it's a very special community. I highly recommend it. It's a great time, and those songs, the
I
hymns
think
will
you
stick in your head for a week, and
Mhm.
you won't do any sitting.
is I think I remember you took your daughter to receive communion in an Eastern
Yeah,
East,
right.
Byzantine Catholic
It was
parish.
Melkite Church. I had no idea actually. My dad mentioned something about it in passing. I was like, whatever. Like I didn't know what he was talking about. He likes to talk about stuff, like entering church, and like when I go to church, I want to just be quiet and listen and absorb everything. And he's kind of like a chatterbox, to be honest. But we went up for communion, and my mom was carrying her. Sometimes I let them have the treat of taking her up whenever I go with them because they just love her so much. But yeah, they gave her communion, and I don't know. I was kind of shocked by it at first, but it kind of grew on me. Honestly, I think it's a pretty cool thing because, you know, she's already been baptized and she hasn't committed any mortal sins or anything like that. She's not the age of reason yet, and her receiving the body of Christ was like, I have a saint in the house, basically. You know, like I have like a living saint right here.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Maybe I need to take my 6-year-old to that.
Yeah,
See if he behaves a little bit
yeah.
better. Um, one, I think we deviated a little bit from literature, but I like the way that this conversation is going. Is is Birmingham like a Catholic hub? Because I think Jason from Do the Harder Thing is also there, and you've met with him at some point, I think.
It is. It's a very weird place. It's extremely Protestant. It is I would say it's a Protestant Mecca of America, and
I thought that was like Utah.
no, that's Mormon.
No,
That's
that's
Oh,
Mormon.
Mormon.
Mormon,
That's
dude.
Mormon country.
Sorry.
Protestant Mecca is Birmingham,
Oh,
Alabama, and
wow.
it is 4% of the Christian population here is Catholic, and 86% of Catholic marriages here are interfaith, including my own. My wife is Protestant, and it's just it's a weird environment here for Catholics. It can be very hostile, but they're very God fearing people. They're good people here in
Mm.
Alabama. Whenever I come from like some other state or city or whatever, and from a plane, like I can feel Jesus, and it's a great feeling to come home. But it is a Catholic hub in a sense. Mother Angelica, she had like some sort of vision or some sort of calling to come here and to start something, and she started at EWTN, and that's just down the street. And that's where my father worked there for a little while for security, and a lot of spooky
Okay.
things go on there. By the way, like like spiritual spookiness, apparitions, and like just very scary stuff. Apparently,
Well, I'm glad that you brought it WTN because I did remember vaguely that it was around there somewhere. So that's like so interesting. God has a sense of humor for sure.
yeah. It
What he wants to do with.
Yeah, it's probably. I used to live like 5 minutes away from it. So we just walk there.
Oh well,
But
nice.
I used to.
You'd be in the audience of the live. shows.
I used to live 5 minutes from it, but then I moved. But the Birmingham is very weird. It's got Latin Mass. It has a Maronite parish. It has a Melkite parish. It's just very liturgically diverse, and there's not even that many people here. So it is kind of a hub in a way. There's a lot of people that come and go. We've got Father Mitch. We've got several prominent figures like that, and a lot of it has to do with EWTN probably.
Mm-hmm.
Gustavo, aren't you reading a book by him right now, Father Mitch
Oh,
Papa?
no, he just did the
Isn't that the
he
one that
just
you
did the
sent me?
forward for it. Seven Secrets of the Eucharist by Benny Flynn.
Oh, that's I
Yeah,
read it wrong.
yeah, he just did the introduction or the forward. Yeah, yeah.
Anyways, all right, Gustavo, do you have any
Yeah, I
other
mean,
questions before we
like you
wrap it
said,
up?
you know, we kind of deviated a little bit from the original topic, but I just wanted to bring it back to that. Brian, is like, what do you think literature is so important, especially
It's
nowadays?
yeah, literature is very tricky these days, especially because of like media with movies and television and stuff, and people have shorter attention spans. But I think that makes literature even more important because it can be a good break from that. You know, uh, people need to start using their minds a little more. You know, not just like consume and consume and consume. And literature is a good, it's like a good workout for the noodle. And
Mm-hmm.
I think the books are important because you can definitely convey a sharper image, a sharper message to your audience than books or than movies and TV can. You know, you can say a lot more, and I don't know. They just they're fun to write. They're fun. I enjoy reading, you
Mm-hmm.
know, and I don't know. I think society just needs to, you know, turn back to more traditional media a little bit more, and kind of take a break from just all the noise. And books are very quiet, you know.
Yeah, I think that's what you. Yeah,
Quiet is good.
you hit the nail on the head. I think, you know, in the instant gratification that we have, right? I mean, people don't have the patience anymore to just sit quietly without something buzzing on and
Mm-hmm.
off every 28 seconds.
Yeah.
So that the distancing yourself from the digital world and immersing yourself into books, at least for this generation, is going to take some training, you know,
Mm-hmm.
because it's like they're very, very you know, I think I consider myself one of those. I'm not the biggest bookworm. My wife is. She's literally the librarian of the house. The library that we have, she compiled it, and she's like I said, you know, has been instrumental in my journey in terms of like, okay, appreciating literature and knowing why it's important, knowing why it's needed. And but yeah, I mean, the instant gratification, you're not gonna get that from a book. You got to work at it, you know. So
Yeah.
kind of like force myself to that, kind of like eating a
Mm-hmm.
salad instead of stuffing your face with donuts every day.
Right. And I think, well, I lost my train of thought. I'm not gonna lie,
You're good.
but it's just I don't know the books. I think they can really do a lot of good for people.
Hmm.
You know, just books in general, not just my books, but like just trying to break out of that fast food entertainment. You know,
Yeah.
like you said,
Yeah.
and it's funny. I remember what I was going to say now. It's funny because we read a billion text messages and articles, and we read all of this stuff all day long. These direct messages, tweets, just constantly consuming. You know, we're not just watching TV and
Hmm.
movies. We're reading things more than any people have ever read anything ever. You know,
Yeah.
like people were illiterate 80 years ago, and now everybody's constantly reading all this information, and they could put that skill to use and read a story and make their brain function in a different way for once.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
it won't be difficult. I'd like to read a lot more than I do, but it I mean all it takes is just picking up a book.
Yeah. It's also important to
Yeah.
instill it in your kids early.
Mhm.
Trying to read aloud as a family is something that we try to do,
Yeah.
because then that allows us to have something other than the TV to be looking at. We share the 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 reading part. If you have older kids, we kind of like share the chapters, and then it opens it up for discussion. Either at the
Mhm.
dinner table or after dinner or after rosary or anything. We try to get that under our belt, and my wife says, I mean, I keep bringing her up because it's like she's so right on a lot of things, on everything actually. And she says to my kids, books are stories that somebody already went through. So if you read a story, you're typically going to find like a message in it, something that went wrong and how somebody overcame that wrongness or that
Right.
that dilemma. So don't just read to be entertained. Read to learn how to go through life by people who already done it, either in real
It's
life or
very
by fiction. and
yeah.
and and I think that's one of the best lessons that I think we can get from literature at large.
I think that's very wise. I will say that Shriving Place is not an autobiography. I can't like I don't have that life experience so
Full
much, but
disclaimer here.
yeah. Um, but I definitely
You know how to say write about what you know. This is not the case.
yeah no definitely. But I will add to that and say that you know uh, TV and movies and stuff they came out in the world and we've got some really good ones, but
Hmm.
they've just progressively gotten more left leaning, like very progressive, very degenerate. And the good thing about books is that we have thousands of years of books, and there's
Exactly.
thousands and thousands and millions of stories that haven't been touched by modern progressivism. And we, as families, we could really benefit from that. There's
Hmm.
books that I haven't read that I've probably not even heard of that are greater than anything that you'll find on Netflix or on
Exactly.
Amazon or Disney or any of that stuff. And
Hmm.
we
Yeah.
could really benefit from remembering that, reminding ourselves that there's a billion stories out there that we will never see the light of day unless we go to a library or something.
Exactly. Yeah. Cool.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate having you on. Let's plug all the things. Where can people um, find your books to begin with?
The books are on Amazon, but there's also there's an occasion where I'll sign them and I'll send them out personally, and they can be purchased through. I mean, if they Google the Shriving Place or Stork Sewing Season, they can purchase them through like any of the vendors, Barnes and Noble, Books a Million, like anybody that prints books, I guess. I just self publish through Amazon. Uh, but yeah, that's where you can find the books, and you can find me in the books and our various petitions and whatnot through Cathoholicism on Instagram.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. That's awesome. Well, thank you for listening to this episode of Baritus Catholic Podcast, the show where two Mexican dads talk about faith, life, and culture. If you like the podcast or got something out of this episode, please share it with your friends and family. Subscribe, like, comment, rate, and review if you haven't. If you don't like the podcast, well, just keep it to yourself and let others make their own mistakes. Go to direct.me/Barbatos to check out the show notes, social media, and how to support the podcast and more. And bless
Pray for
Casey.
us.
Pray for us. Until the next time.